My name is Thomas from Atlas AG, and today this tutorial is about the configuration tool. I would like to show you how it is used, the functions and features of it. The configuration tool I'm using today is version 0.7, so if you have a higher or lower version, minor changes may appear. The configuration tool has three different sections. The furthest to your left is the information section. In the middle is the motor configuration section and the sequence section, and the area to your left is the manual section. For easy use, you also have a pull-down menu or pull-down bar. In the section information, you see all the necessary information from the KannMOTION system. From top to bottom, for example, the first value is the actual position of the motor. You can see if you change the rotor position, the value in the configuration tool has changed. Most of the values are self-explaining. For example, the error, is there an error or not? The error count, how many errors you've had. Then the version numbers, hardware version, firmware version. The sequence version I will explain a bit later in sequences. Then you have the actual value or statuses of the digital and analog inputs. The communication parameters are displayed. In the middle section, the configuration and the sequence sections, you have two bars, motor configuration. Here you have values which are preloaded from the motor data, which you can see here. Some data you may change if you need, for example, the supply voltage, the maximum current of the motor you would like to apply, also the maximum velocity, maximum acceleration. You have some additional features where you can adjust, for example, a filter for the inputs. You also have the possibilities of export mode. There you have some additional parameters which you can adjust. Then the second part is the sequences. Here I will show you in the last part of this video how a sequence or a motor or a motion is programmed. The last section, the section to your right, is the manual section. In this section you can read what the command is all about, and if you need further detail or assistance, you may find your information here. If you click on the command in the manual, the page, the appropriate page, the corresponding link is jumped automatically. So it's pretty easy to use. Now I would like to explain you how the KannMOTION is really working and how you can use the configuration tool to produce motion with the KannMOTION. Okay, here we have hooked up a KannMOTION, a Kann24H2086. We produce a new project, choose the appropriate amplifier, the Kann24, then the appropriate motor, the Kann24H2086. All the motor parameters are preloaded. Here, if necessary, you can adjust the voltage, the current, some analog interfaces values, some hysteresis, or also some, for example, the maximum velocity, maximum torque, what you would like. Then, like I said, we produce the motion here. Here you have the command version. Like previously said, in the right hand in the manual, it's jumped to the appropriate section in the manual, so you can read what is it all about. Here, version, it's programmed down to to the motor, you can see in the information what kind of version is downloaded into the motor. This one will always correspond. Set maximum torque. This is pretty important. This will define how hot your motor is running. This corresponds to the motor current you have set in the motor configuration. You should look that the torque is not set always to the absolute maximum value, otherwise you will overheat your system. Most of the times, for example, you don't need 100% of torque during no motion, so it is always advisable if you reduce the torque during stops to a lower percentage. Set maximum velocity and acceleration. These both values are defined in percent, in 100% of the value which you set in here. Okay, the next command I would like to show you is set home position. This will store the current position of the KannMOTION to 0, so this will define position 0. There's a second option, save position. Here, this will allow you to store up to 3 positions of the motor, which you in the program can go back to. Then the next command is position control. This defines if the motor is running in open loop or closed loop. Here we have closed loop. The next thing is a while loop. This is an endless loop. All the commands coming after this is run in a round robin way. Okay, we will produce a motion which goes 10 degrees relative and then goes back to position 0. For this I will use an if command. An if command, there you have different options. You can have it defined by a digital input. So here you can, for example, define input 1 as digital input 1 as the corresponding if condition, or you can have an analog input, and here you can define the value if the analog input is above or below a certain amount of voltage. We use, like I said, a command. So if the command 1 is written over the hyperterminal, the command is executed. Like I said, we have position control. There we have also 4 different options. Let's start from the lowest. Here in the previous command I said you can store up to 3 values. Here, if you go to save position, you can go back to the stored position. Second is analog. Here you can define to what position will correspond the analog input. So you can define here which position should be executed with 0 volt or with 10 volts. Then we have an option of relative position, which we will do right now. We will do a motion of 10 degrees relative to the position which is currently with the current position of the motor. Then we use a second if command, also as a command over hyperterminal. We use command number 2, and then we said we go position. We have here absolutely go back to 0. So this is the motion I said I would like to program. Now it's very easy and simple to download. To download this configuration and sequence, you have to push F10 or do here sequence download. You also can delete the sequence which is stored in the motor, or you can also update the firmware in the motor. Okay, we use F10 to download the sequence and the sequence and the configuration. Here in the information area, you also see if the download is successfully or not. Now, another feature of the configuration tool is here. To simulate a hyperthermal, you can go here by the pull-down bar, Command 1, and then this is executed in the motor. You can have it executed a second time or a third time. Now it did 3 motions of 10 degrees relative to the position 0. Now we execute Command 2, which the motion goes back to position 0. Simple and easy. Thanks. If you have any further questions, feel free to contact me at support@KannMOTION.de or visit our website at www.kannmotion.de. Thanks.